I read the script in 2007, and that was only 2 months after having moved to this country in order to try and pursue a Hollywood career, and this thing just blew my head off. The idea of playing Dr. King, it was a look. I wouldn't cast me as him for obvious reasons. The accent is very strange. And but like I say, I sort of had this spiritual connection to it, and then it wasn't until actually 3 years on that a director came along in the shape of Lee Daniels, who wanted me for the role. The initial director didn't, and we just couldn't get the film off the ground for various reasons. Lee and I went on to do The Butler instead. He felt, having touched on civil rights as a subject matter, he wanted to move on. And in the meantime, I'd done a beautiful film with Ava called Middle of Nowhere, and just fell head over heels in love with her talent, and became an advocate for her to be the one to direct this movie. And thankfully, the producers agreed, and she came on board. That was a 7-year journey.
The film was about the people who he led and how he led them, and the band of brothers and sisters around him who, bolstered him so that he could do that. So it was really important to, give the texture and the tone, the toxicity, the triumph, the tragedy of that place that is Selma. My father is from Lowndes County, Alabama, which is something that David didn't know about as he was advocating for me. So I really know that place. Many summer vacations, Christmases, New Year's, Father's Day, Mother's Day. I'll be there for Christmas this year. After our film opens in LA, in New York, I fly to Montgomery. And so I know that place, and so it was really about imbuing the script with a sense of place and of time. That's why we open it with the 4 little girls. Just feel it's important to not sanitize that time in history and say it was violent, but really feel the violence.
Right. Looking at other people in history, like Annie Lee Cooper and all the other characters who were part of the movement. It wasn't just Dr. King, but it was all his team who was helping.
I think it's easy to just focus on King, but King, like I said, was a leader of men and women. And the stories are so vibrant, they're so robust, so rich of the characters and the people who really made it so that people like me, that we could all be sitting here with you. That was not the case 50 years ago, that we could all be here together in a room. And so how that came to be was the work of a lot of people of all colors, of all creeds. James Reed, Viola Luiso, Roy Reed, the New York Times reporter. Everyone is real that's named in the film. Everyone is real, and everyone played a part.
Carmen, you have played Coretta Scott King before in a film called Boycott.
Boycott, I'm playing Coretta Scott King in 1955. And it's really at a point in which she's at a very different place in her marriage. The Kings as a couple had just been recently thrust into the position of leadership and were still really finding their way. And there was a buoyancy, I think, in the couple, a hopefulness. The threat of death was certainly part of their daily lives, but it wasn't a 10-year in and out experience, day in and day out experience at that point. So by the time I had the opportunity to play her for Selma, and it's now 1965, I felt it was very important to imbue her with a weariness and a sense of burden and a sense of frustration, because this is somebody that was an academic, an intellectual, was really Martin's equal in many ways. It was also an artist, but had really been reduced to, I mean, it's a worthy thing. I'm a mother myself, so I hesitate using the word reduced, but she had become really mother of children and wife to Martin, and wasn't necessarily able to express very much of the rest of who she was. So, and I also feel very strongly that by 1965, relative to 1955, she'd really bought into her own image. There was an expectation of who she should be, and a veneer had sort of become part of her persona. And she really played into the facade. So that thankfully was very much evident in the script to play. But on top of that was this beautiful scene in the center of the film where you get to see this wonderful crack in the veneer, when there's an opportunity really to explore so many of those other dynamic, emotional sides of her. And so you get a glimpse, I hope, into a much more dimensional sense of who this woman really was.
Carmen, You are known in the world as a great musician and an artist, and you've made this beautiful transition to film. I just want to say that. I've seen a lot of the things that you've been in. So talk to us about working on Selma, and also talk about, you know, the song.
Working on Selma has been really one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. It's been life enriching from so many perspectives, but I think the first was really reminding me that we have a part to play in making the world better. And I felt that I was doing it in my music, and I knew I would like do speaking engagements and show up when people asked me to show up. But getting to do Selma, I realized the diligence that it takes, the commitment that it takes to really be an activist. And it put a spark in me. Like every day I was coming home from the set, I was thinking about, because I was in the middle of working on music actually, and I was thinking, how can I have my music be like soundtracks to this activism that I want to put into play? And the film also, you know, taught me, or the experience actually taught me that, you know, no one person can do it all by themselves, you know, and, you know, getting to see the greatness in Coretta Scott King and Diane Nash and the Annie Lee Coopers and the C.T. Vivians, and for those great people to be like part of a team and say, we know that this man is the chosen one to be the voice. It was, you know, a good humbling lesson, because in many ways that's what we were as the cast. We had to support our leader, and it was like, it just was a good feeling to know, all right, I'm a part of this. I'm a part of something special, and I don't have to be in the forefront. Like, you know, this is not about us shining. Like, you know, and I appreciated that, and I feel like what Ava created is a piece of art that you don't feel the ego in the film. You don't feel like the intention of, let me show you how great I am. The truth comes out because she cares about John Lewis, she cares about people, she cares about the background actors, she cares about the crew, and it just comes through in the film in a way that she cared about the story. And that experience just was like, all those things I was getting fed, I was like, man, I feel like my life is better, you know. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this, and basically the song was a reflection of that. The song was a reflection of the experience of getting to know the people of the civil rights movement, some of the names I didn't know, and really paying honor and tribute to them, and saying, hey, y'all, we got to carry this torch now. Like, we still alive. We have the opportunity. We need to show our youth that they are the ones that are actually the future for this. And I just really, John Legend and I wanted to bring the song to the present the way the film is. The film is present, you know, so the song had to be that too.
Ava, I want to talk about shooting on the Pettus Bridge.
Well, the Edmund Pettus Bridge that you saw is the actual bridge where Bloody Sunday, the assault happened. Edmund Pettus, actually, for those that don't know, is the name of the local Grand Dragon KKK leader in the area. And the bridge is to this day named after him, which is a darn shame. So anyway, moving on. We were on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is there was an energetic thing happening there. You know, we know that people bled there, that bodies were broken there, that spirits were broken there, and then triumphed, you know, and came back again. And so I think it was something really beautiful for the actors, and David can speak to it, to perform, you know, to have the scene of Turnaround Tuesday, where he stands there and he makes the decision to turn back around in the actual place where King did it, or at the end of the film when he gives the final speech at the actual steps of the Alabama Capitol where King made that speech. And we actually found the actual podium. No pressure, David. Give the speech actually, and here's the podium.
Here's the podium.
Good luck with that. So to step into those places as actors, you know, it was just a joy for us as a production to be able to, you know, give them the actual space. to add to their work.
We are actors. You know, when cut is called, you know that you are safe. There was no one to call cut on them when this was going on. And that in and of itself was something to really digest. Also, you know, when you're making movies, half of your energy is spent on trying to block out all the apparatus that goes into making movies. Cameras, crew, lights, booms, mics, all that stuff. But again, when you're on that bridge, in that place, with those people, afforded that opportunity, which really was a healing opportunity, actually, because we now live in a different world. We live in a world where a black woman can direct this movie. This is actually a story I haven't told before, but you know, Common and I actually met in 2010 when the first iteration of this film was trying to get off the ground. And we had read together, me as King, and Common was reading for the film as well. And we came out, and I just had such a bond to his spirit. He's such a beautiful individual. And we walked out together. It was in Studio City, just off Ventura Boulevard. And we were walking down the street together, and he said, man, that was so great. Can you let's just pray together. And we found a little alley, off Ventura Boulevard, two grown men praying together. And then it wasn't till another 4 years till we got the film off the ground. And I remember the first day on set, you know, we just looked at each other and we were just like, oh my goodness, how divine is this moment? And that kind of thing would just happen all the time on this. Ava and I had talked about King and not wanting to use prosthetics, not wanting to do anything that's going to, you know, distance the audience from looking into the eyes of this man and just feeling like you can do that without any distractions. And so we chose to, you know, for me to gain weight rather than, you know, have a false nose and a chin or whatever. And, you know, in order to get that very specific thing King had, he had this really quite, you know, he had a lot going on down here. And you know, I'm just built differently. And even though I put on all this weight, you know, I mean, I remember you saying, how can we get more going on here? I was like, I can do head weights, I don't know what else. And Ruth came up with this idea of a wider collar and then make it to make it smaller, much smaller, uncomfortably smaller, so that it just pushed everything up and gave you that king neck, you know. And so I would put on these shirts, look in the mirror, and be like, there it is, you know. And so that, you know, for you do all your work as an actor, but for a costume designer to come along and just make the suits that bit more snug than you otherwise would, you know, it helps when you look in the mirror and go, oh, I feel like I'm that guy. And so it's not just how beautiful they look, it's actually enhancing the performance. That's certainly something she did for me as well.
The timelessness of this film and just how current it is, with protests happening over the weekend. Any comment about that? Did it energize you? Did it say, oh my God, this film is coming out at the right time?
This film was just supposed to be in the world right now at this time. And I say that because it is something for generations to get and see what we can do as a people to come together. It's like a blueprint for all of us to see what peace can be and what love for humanity can be, and what it takes to get there. And of course, there's new things that we'll have to apply now, but strategy and hard work and coming together is going to work all the time. And to see that happening right now, for people like Wendell Pierce was, he was actually in the march, and he said people were bringing up Selma to him, like, it's becoming part of the movement, really. And it's a beautiful thing when we can use our art to change life and film to change life. And so it's really just the right time for it, and we need it. We need it. I feel like it's a component to it, to the whole movement and the change that we want to see coming. So, I mean, it's a beautiful time. I mean, of course, we don't want all this turmoil going on in the world, but if it is, we want to assist in changing it. And I believe Selma is truly a tool for that.